Hi guys, it's Frank the Tank. A few of you have asked what kind of specialty tools are helpful when working on shocks. I dug through my garage and laid out some of the stuff that I find very helpful. Some of this is not common hand tools, and some of it you should have in your tool selection already. The things I'm not going to cover are a ratchet set and Allen wrenches, because everybody should have those. First thing you're going to need is a vise. Now I have a real vise, but it's buried in the corner over there, and this little baby vise was on the floor, so I just put it up here for visual representation. When you're using a vise on a shock absorber, you always want to have some sort of aluminum jaw. These are cheap aluminum jaws from any tool house, or you can get these really nice jaws from a company like Poly Performance that grab the shock shaft. They're very nice. It depends on what you're working on at the particular time. I find this particular pry bar to be invaluable when working on shock absorbers. You can use it to extend the shock, shoving it through the eyelet as a big handle, and you can use it to align the bolts when you're installing it on the car. Probably the next thing you're going to come to after you get the shocks off the car is you're going to need to open up the seal retainers. Sometimes you need a big crescent wrench. I hate people that use pipe wrenches on the hexes because they're usually aluminum and it just destroys them. I have a collection of a few wrenches and spanners that work. This is an old snap-on spanner. I can't seem to find it online anymore, but if you have one, it is worth its weight in gold if you're working on various 2.0 shocks. I like to filter the oil when I take apart a shock. So I take paint strainers and I'll stick them in a funnel inside of a large graduated cylinder. Sometimes if the paint strainer is not fine mesh enough, I will put a paper towel in there to catch all the metal bits and just slowly pour it out. It's great if you're trying to figure out if you have carbon in the oil from the wear band or metal from the bearings or some kind of damage. Or some brands, they'll actually have chips in the oil due to faulty assembly, not clean enough. I like to use towels that are relatively lint-free, and I would have a can of brake clean out because I love to use brake clean. I believe that everything should be as spotlessly clean as you can have it when you put your shock together. Sometimes you'll need a good set of snap ring pliers, either to change monoballs or with some shocks just to get the rod guide assembly out. I like these. They're versatile. They do any kind of snap rings with the detachable teeth. A lot of shocks, most shocks, have a round cross-section retaining ring holding the gland assembly inside. As a result, you're going to need a good pick set. I like the snap-on ones because they're lifetime warranty and I break them regularly. This pick right here is one of my all-time favorites for getting those out. The straight picks are a little bit more difficult. That one you can kind of pry it out. Once you get your seal assemblies out, you can slide them off the shaft, and I have what look like picks again, but these are all polished and rounded so that you can take the seals out without damaging them. I also have a magnifying glass. It's backlit so that once I get the seal out, I can really examine it and look for damage. If you don't care what happened to your seals, you can use these picks again to tear them out, but you'll punch holes in them and you'll never really know why a leak was caused. A lot of times I will deburr the piston assemblies. This is a kind of a common deburring knife. It's a good tool, but I much prefer this one that's just a hollow ground 3-point or 3-sided file. It's an old file that we just put on the grinder and give a sharp edge on all sides. I also use sandpaper. I don't have a flat sanding stone here or a piece of precision ground steel that's flat enough to really show you how that works. I'm trying to get one, but my scrap metal bin is kind of depleted. When I am investigating a shock, a lot of times I'll want to know about the hardness of the seals. So I do have a durometer checker. I can test the seals and O-rings to see if they've hardened from oil exposure, or just if I'm curious about the wear characteristics. Harder seals seem to not seal as well, but last longer. And then when it comes time to put my shocks together, I always have a large tune kit with a lot of variety. I'm not a big fan of just buying one disc kit and saying, that's what I've got to play with. I know it's expensive, but if you're gonna play with shocks, it's just an investment. Discs, I have a set of calipers. You can use a 0 to 1 mic, but I loaned mine to somebody to set up a rear end and it never came home. Personal pet peeve about assembling shock absorbers. Do not be one of those guys that uses an impact to put the piston on. Use a torque wrench. You can find the torque value for whatever thread online. You should also always use red Loctite, even if it is a pinch nut. There are 2 other tools that I would always have if I was assembling shocks, and I don't have them right now. I like to have seal bullets. In fact, I have a couple of shocks that I'm going to be looking into, and I'm going to cut one of the piston rods up and make a couple seal bullets, if I can, in a lathe. And then 0 loss chucks. I'm gonna put a picture in the video at this point, but I don't like the just press it on and hold it. I don't think that gives you a precise enough fill. Anyways, that's kind of the weirder stuff that I would use, or the less common stuff that I would use to work on a shock. It can be very handy to use a hammer to assemble the shocks. Sometimes you have to tap the rod guide in. I hate to see a metal hammer near shocks. They tend to damage them. So I have a hard plastic hammer and a dead blow hammer that are the only tools I will ever hit a shock absorber with.